Hello, everyone. How are you doing? And welcome to another episode of the Dr. Will Show. I'm your host, Dr. Will. And okay, Kathrine, you're back. Your picture had went away for a little bit. Uh, it is Friday. I would say it was a lazy Friday for me, but I was enrolling Chromebooks because we're about to roll out another 153 at the high school within the next couple of weeks. Uh, so it's all good in terms of what I do. Now, you know how we like to do it at this show, and it's a Friday, so we're going to have a good time. We are here with Dr. Kathrine Shone. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Dr. Will.
Awesome. She's on the West Coast coming in, joining us. And today we'll be talking about leveraging transformational change in the digital age, which, she and I talked earlier. And it's really interesting the fact that here we are with technology and the internet changing everything, disrupting everything. Blockbuster is like a dinosaur or something, it's a relic.
Oh,
And yeah, ooh, I saw that.
yeah,
Yet we still have teachers who, I mean, come on, you know what they're doing. But that's the question we'll get to later on. So, for those who are watching the show, and you're saying, Dr. Will, I barely know you. Will you please introduce yourself, Dr. Shone?
um, well, first of all, thank you for the invitation to be in your show. Honored to be here and have the opportunity, as I shared with you earlier, to lead the learning. Um, I am currently the director of Equity and Professional Learning at Pomona Unified School District, Pomona, California, West Coast. Um, Prior to that, I have 18 years of experience in education. I taught, you name it, I've been there. Alternative ed, special ed, general ed. I was a counselor as well, and I have 8 years of experience as an administrator, both in a high achieving middle school and in a turnaround middle school. I enjoyed every minute of it. I now work at the district level and some exciting changes in terms of transformation around our professional learning and how we intend to evolve as a district 21st century adult learning.
Awesome, awesome. Again, welcome to the show, people. Um, so, Doc, why is digital a core leadership issue? How has the digital disruption changed leadership?
I would like to respond to that question, giving honor to a digital strategy leader named Jace Kinlan, because I think he said it well, that digitalization is challenging, it's undermining, and it's disrupting the way we conduct business as organizations. We think that we have like a surface understanding in terms of how this change, either through scaling or the pacing, affect us, but perhaps we will have to relook at it and see whether or not we lack the depth of understanding in terms of how these changes actually impact more our organizational strategies and how to execute actions to effectively respond to it. In terms of your question had to do with how it affects core leadership. The changes around the digital times, I would focus on, for example, a journey of our clients or our organizational model. It almost automatically put the spotlight on the top leadership. I say top leadership in the business arena. It's the CEOs, superintendents, because they are the ones who protect the value and create the equity for your stakeholders. So if your top leadership do not know exactly the roadmap to respond to that new world, then the likelihood of success will be minimal to none. Um, I say that also with a caution that it's not just that top leader that would lead this change. It's now about collaboration and engagement. But my point being is that you have to have the highest level of leadership's commitment to be able to change the course of the organization and make it a lot more fundamentally effective and agile.
Mm.
The second part I would like to address, you talk about, okay, well, if you created, if there's that digital disruption, so what has changed in the leadership? I want to point out three things because there's many, kind of disequilibrium that the digital age brings to us. But three that comes to mind is collaboration, courage, and culture. Collaboration, we heard this saying it's not really who you work for, but who you work with that matters. Well, more than any other time, that makes a lot of sense. Even though great leaders in the past naturally engages their followers, their stakeholders, the difference at this time would be that the collaboration, the digital leaders of this time must actually encourage collaboration, not just within the organization, but across the industry. It reminds you of Uber, and it's not the bus companies and the taxis that actually came up with that. It's from the outside sectors, because the insights, the ideas, and perhaps the threats that may come from unrelated sources or sectors may be those that would scale up and become a breakthrough or unprecedented changes, and you want to be at the forefront of that. I say courage. Courage is not new to us, the key aspect of traditional leadership. But again, more than any other time, you can see in the recent times, our leaders must exhibit courage. You can no longer stay on the sideline and say, well, I'll do the wait and see game, because the results may be catastrophic. Leaders in this digital economy need to always be ready and open, and as you said, nimble, adaptive, and even when the times would require it, be ready and open to perhaps reconfiguring or redesigning their organizational model. The last thing is culture is very, very important. Again, just like the first two, it's a key aspect of traditional leadership. But here's where the shift is. We are now surrounded with digital natives, Generation Z. And in the past, the dominant leadership, that's where the clear vision statement comes. That may not be the case anymore. That's not where all the great ideas would come. And we'll know that this group of young, tech savvy generation, that's where perhaps a lot of the ideas or best ideas may come, and we need to be ready for that. The other part of it is this generation that we have to be, prepared for to engage. They don't just need clear vision or clear vision statement. They need something compelling. They want to challenge. They want to compete, and they need that why this need exists, and how fulfilling these needs will engage the organization. What would it do for the organization the client serves?
Mm. Did y'all hear that? She is she's dropping some knowledge. I wish I had some tea I could sip on it right now. That was all right. It's all right. So to your point, the internet has brought on a magnitude of change, and I recently read a post by Paul Bogue in which he said change can no longer be controlled, and he was speaking about how in the digital age the traditional processes of change management are obsolete. If this is indeed true, how can leaders guide change within their organizations but still be nimble enough to ride what seems to be overnight changes?
Hmm. I'm going to have to take you down the memory lane to high school. I remember this Victorian era writer. His name is, I believe, H.G. Wells, who once wrote, "Adapt or perish," or perhaps any other time in the history has adaptability been most crucial than today in this age and time. So when you ask that question, what comes to mind readily is the word adaptability, adaptive leadership, agile leadership. It's the leader's ability to not just be able to change, but be changed to fit new circumstances. And it's really not just a crucial leadership skills, but it's also a main competency in emotional intelligence. So, as leaders, you ask, how can we guide the change from within? By, I would say, by being adaptable. Um, Unfortunately, learning to have that adaptable mindset does not come naturally for everyone. So we almost have to create the conditions to be able to practice it with, that, so that it becomes our default and it becomes our norm. I I have a couple of things that I have done very simply, and I would like to share just a couple of them. Um, in terms of how to practice that on a daily basis. One is just as simple as don't just say no. I know our schools have a whole lot of initiatives, and sometimes we have to pause and reflect and just kind of allow it to sit in and reflect, because sometimes those initiatives, if we have positive attitudes about it, it does help facilitate change. Another will be thinking outside the box. Once in a while, we have to change or shake things up, because if we're not innovating and we just keep following standards operating procedures, those standard operating procedures will have their expiration date. And when it becomes obsolete, the practice becomes ineffective as well. Another one would be try to be a part of the early adapter group. Adapt first, be the first one to try it. And what you'll find out is that sometimes, because of that open mind and embracing change, you'll come up with this, great discovery, which will, end up being a game changer for your organization. What happens to it? It helps kind of make the change a lot less painful. Um, planning ahead of time may be another one. When I know that I have long-term objectives, when I hit road bumps, I'm quite okay with it, because I know that that's part of the journey. So it also helps in terms of your being adaptable and learning that road. And last thing, and this is interesting, about changing it up. They call it it's all about the morning routine. In the morning, we're creatures of habit, and our actual routine starts first thing in the morning. But sometimes, if you change it up a little bit, what happens is you carry that mindset throughout the day. Not, I'm saying change it up all the time, but at least use those as guides, so that as leaders, we can, ease into being a lot more adaptable. So those high stakes implementation change comes out, we're ready for it.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Okay. So even with realities of the age, this digital age,
Mhm.
smacking K through 12 in the face, we still have many schools that operate like they did in the 19th century. What practices are needed to bring the kind of transformational change required to bring teaching and learning into this century?
Um, I have a little bias in this, but for me, change leader is the transformational leader, which, by the way, was a focus of my research in my doctoral studies. And a change leader, a transformational leader, is able to leverage the four transformative I's. That is individual consideration, intellectual stimulation, inspirational motivation, and idealized influence. Um, I would like to, if we, to read a quote that I really love, that I put it
Mm-hmm.
in my research, by James Burns in 2002. And he quoted this in his book, Transforming Leadership, A New Pursuit of Happiness, when he called leaders as the most potent agent of change. And he said, summoned forth by human wants, the task of leadership is to accomplish some change in the world that responds to those wants. Its actions and achievements are measured by the supreme public values that themselves are the profoundest expressions of human wants: liberty, equality, justice, and the opportunity for pursuit of happiness. I thought that was profound. And for us today, primary of those ones is digital access and digital efficacy, because we can no longer separate that from quality teaching and learning. Now, in terms of practices, I mentioned the four I's, so I'm just going to very quickly mention a couple of those practices, not limited to this, but idealized influence, just admitting mistakes, humble leadership, inspiring trust, inspirational motivation, just displaying optimism and positive attitude towards change as a leader. And I call this the leadership presence. Sometimes our presence by itself is motivating folks. Intellectual stimulation, giving opportunities for learning by doing. Well said for technology, modeling continuous learning and being a lead learner. In individual consideration, which is one that I found was, very critical in terms of adult learning, was their own reassurances, affirming and validating their individual being before you actually go to the curricular or academic tasks, believing in their unseen potential in what you call the listening leader.
Mm. Okay, y'all. When this show hits my blog, you'll have to pay $1.99 to listen to it. Dr. Shone is on fire today, dropping the knowledge. I'm not giving away this show for free. I'm just playing. I'm just playing. Uh,
That's what you call individual consideration, validation, acknowledgement, celebration. So I appreciate that. It helps us something.
you're welcome. You're welcome. Now, with any positive change, the question becomes, how do you scale it? And what are the keys to sustainable change?
Um, I'd name a few. I mean, there's many that successful organizations have used. The question is, how do you scale it? I think oftentimes we don't think about sustainability until either the grant is almost done or we're in the middle of it. You plan for sustainability as you begin the implementation. You can always, as a leader, sit back and do your check and reflect, and maybe perhaps not realize that it's not something that's scalable. But if you plan for sustainability, you're going to give it 100%, and not wait until the very end. And you can use your check accordingly. The other thing will be to implement systems and practices, and not just focusing on the program. The focus simultaneous on the macro and micro lens. What would, if this implementation, is scaled? So what would we do to our organization? Would there still be a contextual fit after 5 years? We also emphasize efficiency more than just effectiveness. And I mentioned about contextual fit. And last but not the least is in dynamic setting, as the guru of PBIS, Dr. Rob Horner said, in dynamic setting, sustainability is achieved only with continual regeneration. If you have something that you're thinking of scaling up, you need to energize the people around you. They have to be thirsty enough, wanting it and seeing it as part of the organizational vision in the long run. You talk about leading sustainable change. Again, lots of research around that, but I love what Fulan said about the 6 secrets of change. It really aligns very well with the transformational leadership. And the first one talked about you gotta love your employees. That's where they feel the connection. You need to see them as assets, connect them to purpose, give them voice as part of the decision making so that they have ownership, and they see themselves as part of that vision. Capacity building would be the other one. I think organizationally, I think sometimes we tend to focus on programs and not building that human potential. So in the long run, we need to keep asking whose capacity was built with this implementation. Um, Establishing that goal that learning by itself is the work. Being transparent and in the end letting the system learn from it. Always have to look back and reflect and see what was our organizational learning. That's how you sustain change over time.
Mm. She's a doctor, y'all. Y'all know that.
Oh, giving you academic answers.
No, that's, I mean, literally, I mean, it's really good. It's really good. So I definitely appreciate it. And we'll definitely listen to this again later. So before we go, I want to talk to you about uh, what sort of advice or for schools. So if you could roll out a digital playbook for schools, what would it consist of? What would you say are the opportunities to use digital to drive change?
Mm. My first page um, for the digital playbook would be, first K-12 educators really connecting college and career readiness into the purpose and core values of digital learning, because typically that comes very separate. The classroom teachers using digital tools and resources to support student development towards college and career readiness. And by that, I'm saying on the SAMR model, not sticking with the substitution and the accommodation, but really focusing on the modification and redefinition. Page three would be schools and districts building up the capacity of their staff and making sure that everybody is using the opportunity for digital learning, not just piecemeal, but to transform the organization. And lastly, it's kind of like a wraparound piece. The community, parents and community members supporting the classroom use of technology, again, that leads to college and career readiness. The second part of your question is what opportunities to use digital drive for change. Um, Very interesting. Gerald Kane, 2015, and his colleagues talk about digital is really not about just technology. It's about strategy. And he and his colleague talked about what digital maturity is. It's not just about focusing on all technological problems. It's about when you reach that maturity, your organization has transformed both processes, talent development, and their model. And how powerful that is. So if you're using technology to drive change, I can see every day and everything in every classroom for every child is an opportunity to embed, embrace digital learning and making it part of the world that we live in, because that's really the world right now. Alvin Toffler, I believe, is the one that quoted before, and I love this one. It says, "Learners inherit Earth, and the learned find themselves beautifully equipped with a world that no longer exists." Digital is our world right now. We can no longer close our eyes and see, and deny its existence. We have to be part of it. And as leaders, teachers, educators, will be remiss to not give that opportunity to our students and each other to make this world that makes a lot of difference for not just this generation again, but future generations.
Thank y'all for coming. Good night. No, I'm just playing. this is this this was a good show, people. This was a good show. I want to thank you, Dr. Shone, for being a guest. You were awesome.
Thank
As
you.
all, you're welcome. And as always, people, this is going to be on SoundCloud, so you can listen to it when you're working out. You can listen to it on that commute to work. Now, if you're in California, you'll have a long commute, so you can listen to a couple of
There you
podcasts.
go. Yeah.
You
Traffic
take-
out there, you want your cognitive, um, nerves to work. There you go.
yes, 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 people. Don't forget, more podcasts is coming on Dr. Will Show. As I always like to close, be you, edu, peace.
Thank you.